Friends, welcome back to part 2 about barriers in research. And as I told you, because of the technical limitations, I wanted to divide this entire video into two parts. So we'll continue the next situation. A supervisor declining. Student S is doing an academic research under supervisor Professor P, who is declining to supervise. If you were student S, what will you do? Request few more times. B, look for another supervisor. C, talk to people around you. And D, any other specify. Okay, option A also is fine, that you can request few more times, but then in case your supervisor is not ready, then you should look for another supervisor who is willing to guide you and who has got almost the same or otherwise better expertise into the research topic that you are interested into. About talking, you can always talk to the admin people how best they can help you with such kind of situation. But then I have always a funny quote. I say, "Oh, okay, take it as just fun." I say, तू नहीं तो और कोई, तू नहीं तो और कोई सही, और कोई नहीं तो तू ही सही. That means in case your supervisor is not ready, you can look for another option. But if your another option is also not there, then best thing is hang on to the first one. So it depends on if you have the research supervisors available at your say place of your research study. Now change, otherwise drop the supervisor. Student is doing academic research. She thinks she should just change her supervisor. Can she do that? Okay, option A, change. Option B, do not change. Option C, wait for some time. Option D, any other. Now sometimes the situation comes and then there could be a number of reasons that as a PhD scholar or otherwise a PhD student who is doing research, you feel like you should change the supervisor, and sometimes it's not in our hand uh, who the supervisor is allotted. But then to begin with, we are enthusiastic, so we accept it, and over the period of time we even get such kind of thought that I should change my supervisor. So fine, option A is okay if you feel you should change. Now option B is also fine, do not change. That means, like, if you change the supervisor once again, sometimes you have to start right from zero. Otherwise, it takes little time to adjust with the new supervisor. Otherwise, you know uh, and you should never think about changing the supervisor if you have completed almost substantial uh, period of time. Say at least you completed 2 years and you're almost at the end of finishing the research. Then in that case, it's better not to change the supervisor. And sometimes option C is also fine, because with the passage of the time, sometimes this thought goes off. But then any other option is, you should talk to your colleagues about such kind of situation uh, in a polite way and just get the opinion. So thumb rule here is, if you have completed substantial period of time such as 2 years and you're almost about to complete, then never think about changing the supervisor. But on the contrary, if it is actually say somehow kind of creating troublesome situation for you, then you can even think about changing the supervisor. And there's a fixed protocol in most of the universities to follow how to change the supervisor. So you just got to look into the SOP and follow that. Okay, I need to work on my research skills. That means we are going to talk about a situation related to research skill. Now student S is doing an academic research. She's realizing that she doesn't have the right skills required for her research. Now what she should do? Option A is do nothing. Option B is ask others to help. Option C is update the knowledge, and option D is any other. Now, just doing nothing, and when you know that you don't have actual skills, is not a good option. Now asking others to help is okay, but then ideally you should have the skills. That means you should learn. Others doing your job is not a good option. Now updating the knowledge is fine, but then if you just update the knowledge, you'll update the knowledge. Probably technically you'll not update your skills also. So I always believe that you can't learn driving the car just by listening to some lectures or just watching video. In order to learn to drive the car, you need to sit into the driver's say uh, place and start driving of the car. So in the same fashion, if you want to learn the research skills, one of the best way is you should do the research. Now maybe you can do a small piece of research like pilot studies and so on and so forth, but then you will learn the research skills by doing the research only and not by any other means. Okay, here's a gem of the presentation. PhD gives you number one, doctor title, number two, a good CV, and PhD takes away from you age, hair, memory, social life, marriage, risky transaction, ever. Okay, sometimes you feel that this is what it happens when you're doing PhD. Supervisor resigns. Student S is doing academic research under Professor P, who has resigned. Now, what they should do? Okay, do nothing, give farewell. Okay, don't ask me the difference between farewell and send off. But then I think technically, if you're just saying final goodbye, you should call it as a farewell. Wait for some time and any other. Now just look at it. This is a typical situation. Most of the places, what happens is if your supervisor has resigned, it becomes the duty of the university to assign another supervisor to you. But then, if you ask me, say if you have completed almost 2 years of your say research degree and the research work and the coursework, and you're almost about to complete, then it's fine. Even if your supervisor goes to another university, can continue supervising you. Nowadays most of the universities take undertaking from the supervisor that I'm going to complete the supervision, but then just remember that once the supervisor has resigned, technically the supervisor can continue for at least 6 months of time, but more than that you need university permissions and say the guide's acceptance. So it becomes moral responsibility sometimes of supervisor to continue supervising for the next 6 months. But then as per the new regulations, the supervisor should be a full-time professor in the university. So once the supervisor has resigned, technically the university should appoint another supervisor, or otherwise at least caretaker supervisor for you. Okay, this is funny part related with the pharmaceutical research. We are often taught GCP, and look at it. This is a lot better than the same old GCP training and just as educational. It looks like a cheerleader saying good clinical practice. Okay, the participants, no, this is a unique situation. Student S is doing an academic research, is getting less participants than required number. Now, what she should do? Do nothing, manipulate the number, recalculate the sample size, any other. Okay, remember that just doing nothing is not a good thought. Manipulating the numbers is not, once again, a good option, because it is expected at the end of the day that as a researcher you should have one of the quality called honesty. Now, recalculating the sample size, once again, is not technically the perfect option, because when you started say recruitment or otherwise enrollment of your participants, before that only you must have calculated the sample size. So now look at the last option, any other option. Take the help of marketing people. So maybe you should come out with some kind of strategy that will improve the enrollment of participants in your research, and definitely the marketing people can help you. And one of the best option uses rewarding the participants for the research. Supervisor is retiring. Student S is doing academic research and under Professor P, who is retiring next month. Now what they should do? Do nothing, give farewell, wait for some time, any other. Now most of the universities, they do try to find out the number of PhD scholars under a supervisor, their age, how long they'll be in a position to continue to supervise. Usually it happens that even if the person is retired, they can continue at least for 6 months to continue the supervision. But if technically somehow it is not possible, then university should appoint another supervisor for you. Okay, your 3 standard deviations above the norm. Thanks. Love letter from a statistician. Okay, we know that sometimes the profession affects the way you communicate. So that means we have a situation with the statistics, statistical support. A student S is doing an academic research. She feels she is not good in statistics. Now, what she should do? Hire a statistician, learn statistics, use a softwares, any other. Okay, hiring a statistician is fine. You might pay and get your work done. You could learn the statistics. That is also one of the best option. Learning to use the softwares is also a good option. Any other is like say The last commit here is very simple, that even if you hire a statistician, you learn but or you use the softwares, but at the end of the day, when you are asked to do the presentation, say your viva voce, you are asked the questions even related to statistics, and then at that point of time you cannot show that it's like a Greek and Latin for you. So one of the best option is learn the statistics in depth. At least learn all that statistical tools that you're using for your research, because my supervisor always used to say that whatever you present you can have the questions. So remember that whatever you're presenting in your thesis, otherwise during your viva voce presentation related to statistics, can invite the questions. So instead of creating a situation for you at such kind of say moment, it's better you learn the statistics. Death of supervisor, sometimes this is unforeseen kind of situation. Student S is doing academic research under Professor P, who recently died. Now what she should do? Do nothing. That's a funny option. Attend funeral, attend mourning rituals, any other. Okay, this situation is not in your hand. Once the supervisor has died, it becomes, university's duty, otherwise admin people's work to appoint another person, maybe caretaker, otherwise another full-time supervisor for you. I forgot to tell you, most of the time, if you have a supervisor who is very old and having health problems, you know what happens. More than his family, his PhD students and scholars keep praying to God, God, give the health to my supervisor till I don't complete the PhD. Okay, that's a funny situation. That's about animal research. And look at that last part. That's this one. Okay. Ethical concern. A student is doing an academic research with human participation. All of a sudden, she realized that there is an adverse reaction. What she should do? Keep quiet, report, pay compensation, any other. Now, sometimes you feel like you might lose, say, more enrollment. You might not be able to complete the research also. No, reporting the ADR, otherwise adverse drug reaction, otherwise adverse situation, becomes an ethical, say, duty of a researcher. Paying compensation is fine, but then that's not the way how we should. Remember that at that point of time, some of the experts says that there could be other people also doing similar research, and it is always your duty to report adverse reaction, uh, because remember that more than your research, human life is more important. So at any point of time, if you come across any adverse reaction, it's your moral duty, it's your ethical duty to report the adverse situation as early as possible. So we come to the end, and in conclusion, the reported barriers are like lack of funding, lack of professional mentorship, then inadequate research facilities, uh, no previous writing experience, high publishing fees, long waiting period for peer review. So it's like money, mentorship, writing, and publication. These are the barriers which have been going on for decades. So to conclude, it's money, mentorship, writing, and publication. These are the barriers, and we had learned different ways how to tackle. So we come to the end of the presentation, and I'd like to thank you for listening to me with the patience. I'm sure it was helpful to you. My name is Dr. Subhash Khatri, and I'm signing off here. Thank you.